All I wanted was one uninterrupted night of sleep. Just one. It felt like a mythical creature at that point, a distant memory from a life before early motherhood swallowed me whole. My son Noah was a champion night waker. Not just a little stir here and there, but full-blown operatic performances that could last for hours. We had tried everything: sleep training, white noise, adjusting his bedtime routine, even desperate whispers with other sleep-deprived parents about magical unicorn dust. Spoiler alert, it didn't exist. My husband, Ben, bless his snoring heart, could usually sleep through anything short of a meteor strike, which meant the nocturnal adventures were almost exclusively mine. By the time the sun dared to peek over the horizon, I felt like a zombie extra in a low-budget horror film, functioning on fumes and an unhealthy amount of caffeine. This particular night had been epic in its terribleness. Noah, then 2 years old, had decided that 2 a.m. was the perfect time for an impromptu dance party in his crib. His joyful shrieks echoed through the house, a stark contrast to the lead weight of exhaustion in my limbs. After an hour of trying to coax him back to sleep, I finally collapsed into bed around 3:30 a.m., the promise of a few precious hours of unconsciousness, my only solace. It was not to be. Barely an hour later, I heard the familiar patter of tiny feet outside our bedroom door. It creaked open, and a small, shadowed figure stood silhouetted against the dim hallway light. "Mommy?" My voice was small, thick with sleep. My internal scream could have shattered glass. "Yes, sweetie," I managed to croak, trying to inject some semblance of warmth into my tone, despite the tidal wave of exhaustion threatening to pull me under. He shuffled closer to the bed, his beloved and slightly drooly stuffed elephant clutched tightly in his arms. He climbed onto the bed, his little body radiating a sleepy warmth. My heart, despite the exhaustion, softened a fraction. These middle-of-the-night cuddles could sometimes be surprisingly sweet. "Mommy," he said again, his voice even smaller this time. He nestled his head against my chest, his soft hair tickling my chin. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to melt into the embrace, the desire for sleep momentarily overshadowed by the simple comfort of his closeness. And then he spoke the words, the heartbreaking words that sliced through my sleep-deprived haze and landed like a tiny dagger in my already weary heart. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice laced with a vulnerability that was far beyond his 2 years. "Mommy, are you sad?" The question caught me completely off guard. Sad? Exhausted, yes. Delirious with lack of sleep, absolutely. But sad? I hadn't consciously registered that emotion. I was so focused on just surviving the nights, on the sheer physical toll of it all, that the emotional undercurrent had gone unnoticed. I pulled him a little closer, my mind racing. Why would he think I was sad? Had I been more short-tempered with him lately? Had my exhaustion manifested in a withdrawn, less playful version of myself during the day? The guilt, a constant companion in motherhood, began to stir. "No, sweetie," I said softly, my hand stroking his hair. "Mommy's just a little tired. Did you have a bad dream?" He shook his head against my chest. "No dream." He paused for a moment, then looked up at me, his big, innocent eyes filled with a worry that mirrored my own unspoken anxieties. "But you look not happy." Not happy. Those two simple words echoed in the stillness of the pre-dawn darkness, carrying a weight far heavier than their literal meaning. Not happy. It wasn't an accusation, just an observation, a pure and unfiltered perception from the innocent heart of my child. And in that moment, the crushing weight of my exhaustion was momentarily eclipsed by a far more profound realization. my lack of sleep wasn't just affecting me, it was bleeding into my interactions with my son. It was creating a subtle but palpable distance between us. He, in his innocent way, was picking up on my depleted emotional state. He could see that his mommy, his safe harbor, wasn't her usual bright and cheerful self. The desire for uninterrupted sleep suddenly felt selfish. It wasn't just about me wanting to feel rested. It was about me needing to be the best possible version of myself for Noah. My exhaustion wasn't just a personal inconvenience. It was casting a shadow over his little world. I hugged him tighter, a wave of tenderness washing over me, stronger than the weariness. "Oh, sweet boy, Mommy loves you very, very much, and you make Mommy very, very happy." He snuggled closer, seemingly reassured by my words, but his question lingered in the air, a gentle but persistent reminder of the impact my sleepless nights were having. We lay there for a while, just cuddling in the quiet darkness. Eventually, Noah drifted back to sleep, his small body a warm weight against mine. But my own mind was wide awake. The simple question, "Are you sad?" replaying over and over. I thought about the day before. Had I snapped at him more than usual when he spilled his juice? Had I been less patient during our block building session when my eyelids felt like they were lined with lead? Had I rushed our bedtime story, eager to just get him back in his crib so I could finally have a moment of quiet? The answer to all of those questions was a painful yes. My exhaustion had made me a less patient, less present mother. And my 2-year-old, with his uncanny emotional radar, had picked up on it. Looking down at his peaceful face, a wave of guilt washed over me. I had been so consumed by my own need for sleep that I hadn't fully considered how my lack of it was affecting him. He wasn't just a tiny human who disrupted my nights. He was a perceptive little soul who needed a happy and engaged mother during the day. The desire for that uninterrupted night of sleep didn't vanish, of course. It still felt like a deep, primal craving. But now, it was intertwined with a stronger motivation, the need to be emotionally present and joyful for my son. The next morning, despite the lingering fog of sleep deprivation, I made a conscious effort to be more engaged. I lingered a little longer during our morning cuddles. I laughed more at his silly jokes. I even managed a slightly more enthusiastic rendition of "Old MacDonald Had a Farm." And you know what? His little face seemed brighter too. He giggled more freely, his eyes sparkling with mischief. It was as if the small cloud that had been hovering over our interactions had lifted. That night, when Noah inevitably woke up, his "Mommy" didn't sound quite so worried. He just wanted a cuddle. And as I held him close, I realized that sometimes the most heartbreaking questions can lead to the most important realizations. My need for sleep was valid, but so were my son's needs for a happy and present mother. Finding that balance wouldn't be easy, but his simple question had given me a powerful new perspective. Have you ever been surprised by your child's emotional awareness? Have they ever said something that made you see things differently? Share your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, you might also find comfort in our story about the invisible work of motherhood and feeling unseen by clicking the video on your screen now. We're all navigating these challenging and beautiful waters together.